people peacefully having a protest, and these Democrats just to show up and turn up anti-ICE.
So following up from our last video, I now want to discuss some of the so-called protests that we are now watching, because much like after the Maduro operation, a bunch of paid communist groups are organizing what they are claiming to be mere anti-war protests, but as usual are just thinly veiled communist displays in support of brutal third world regimes. Hilariously, again, these are the people who frame themselves as the saviors of the brown people, and yet right across the street, as usual, the brown people are celebrating the fall of the very regime that the leftists on the other side are defending. So, as usual, imagine being a woke, let's say, white leftist, and you're saying, hands off Iran and Venezuela, we stand with the Iranian and Venezuelan people, and then on the other side of the street are literally a bunch of Iranian or Venezuelan people celebrating. That's not exactly a good look. It's something that really we would like to call out of touch, I would argue, but, these people, of course, the saviors of the brown people, likely have never even interacted with a brown person in their entire life. So here we go again. We're going to do yet another video showing you the side-by-side. Leftist protests versus the reactions from Iranian people, both in the West, but also, by the way, from Iran, because this is very important. You're very often going to probably hear the defense that, well, the regime change is all just about CIA propaganda. People in Iran really love the Ayatollah. They love the regime. All the protests were fake. Well, some of the evidence out of Iran might show you something to the contrary. As I for a long time tried to argue, yes, absolutely, Western propaganda is a thing. It exists, and maybe the reality is not always the way our media frames it. I'm willing to accept that. However, at the same time, you're really having to do mental gymnastics to look at the state of Iran in 2026, okay? It is a failing country. Their economy is a disaster. Their regime is repressive and brutal. There are mass protests, okay? There were mass protests. It's very hard to deny, oh, they're all just CIA actors, right? And so the idea that, the regime that you're watching right now is super popular, the people are super upset, it's just out of touch with reality. Basic human common sense says that people don't like living in failing, terrible countries, okay? That's sort of a universal human thing. And so, I totally reject this idea that, oh, it's all CIA, the people in Iran love the Ayatollah so much. I don't think that's the case. I mean, I'm sure the Ayatollah has supporters from the fanatic Islamic ideologues. But are we really to believe, especially the younger generation in Iran, who, despite censorship through VPNs, uses social media, is able to access the outside world? Give me a freaking break, right? There is reality, there's truth in the idea that many people in that country don't like the government, okay? So anyways, let's dispel that whole myth and get into this here today, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We greatly appreciate the support, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all the latest news and coverage. And that said, organized by the same exact group, I believe, that did the whole Venezuela protest just about a month ago, you see this hands-off Iran protest taking place in Times Square. They're all holding pre-printed signs, but I'm sure this thing is completely organic. And that is being organized allegedly by a communist organization called the People's Forum, which is an NGO that has received over $20 million from a billionaire who lives in China with ties to the CCP. So quite literally, you're watching just a foreign destabilization attempt by foreign actors to make it look like, oh, the American people are staging an anti-war protest. It's literally just a bunch of organized and staged communists, as usual. Very common tactic. But guess who else is back, ladies and gentlemen, to be the true ambassador on how Americans should conduct themselves when their country is at war? None other than Jane Fonda. That's right, the original traitor to the United States. This is the woman who went to North Vietnam and decided to go on a whole North propaganda tour, living with the North Vietnamese, explaining how noble and virtuous and good the communists were, that we were fighting over there. For whatever reason, she was not arrested and thrown thrown in jail for treason, which she should have been in a time of war, nonetheless is now in Los Angeles following the strikes on Iran before saying that Trump is accelerating the climate catastrophe. So that is apparently the Democrats' brand new argument. As we covered in the last video, their whole case against the Iran operation is very incoherent because they can't figure out which side to take. So that's the new left-wing line, ladies and gentlemen. This is about climate change and the birds and the flowers, guys. And that's why the Ayatollah should stay, because he was the biggest, woke climate change warrior, I guess. Take a listen.
I truly believe that enough people in this country have learned the lessons of the Vietnam War, of the Iraq War, the war in Afghanistan, and the other unnecessary and illegal wars, that we can say loud and clear, the people of the United States are here to tell the Trump administration, you may wage this war in our names, but not with our consent. Trump is a sad, unhinged man. He is at war on many fronts. He is at war against democracy. He is at war against our constitutional rights, especially our First Amendment right, free speech and free assembly. He's at war against those of us who believe that the right to engage in dissent is what democracy is all about. He is at war against immigrant families. He is very definitely at war against the environment and is now vastly accelerating climate catastrophe.
Oh, really? Well, in that case, Jane, then what are you going to go do about it? You're going to go betray America again? You're going to go to Iran to live with the mullahs and show how nice and soft and warm and fuzzy they are, right? I think Jane should do that. We'll crowdsource her trip to Iran so she can go just show off what amazing people the Iranian regime are and all that. So, but you have that, of course, on one hand. And I think the irony here cannot be lost that she is doing so in Los Angeles, the largest Persian diaspora in the United States. And not too far away, of course, this is the scene from actual Iranian people.
The largest Iranian populations outside of the Middle East. You see the gathering there behind her. Julia, how is the Iranian community responding?
Well, this gathering has only grown, Jessica, over the past few hours, since we've gotten here. It has amassed a large number of people, and the celebration is striking. We got here just moments after initial reports, initial rumors of the death of Ayatollah Khamenei had just started to trickle from Iran to this diaspora community, and people were jumping in excitement, hugging each other, crying, saying that basically they've been waiting 47 years for this very day, Jessica. It is the reason so many of them have come out here today. I want you to hear from one of them specifically, his thoughts right after learning that the supreme leader of Iran was dead.
When is the last time you saw people in Israel and Iran dancing on the streets in excitement? And when is the last time you've ever heard of a country coming out and dancing because they're excited that foreign powers are attacking them?
Now, the name of Reza Pahlavi has been at the tip of people's tongues here, Jessica. So these are very much people who are pro-Shah. They want to see a leadership emerge from Reza Pahlavi. They're calling for him to take over the reins. And their hope, they've told me, is that he would then lead a temporary government and hold elections in Iran, hold a referendum in Iran so that the people could decide what would come next for their nation.
Yeah, and so many Iranian people hoping for a regime change and that they can take back their government. A lot of questions about how that will happen, if it can happen.
I mean, that's really cool and all, but did they remember to consult Jane Fonda first? Did they remember to ask Jane Fonda for permission before, they could go celebrate? Because let's not forget, she's just like Nelson Mandela. She's the savior of the brown people. I'm Vietnamese, right? I mean, I literally had direct family who were in concentration camps. The NVA spent months on a manhunt for my grandfather because he was someone important in the South Vietnamese military. But hey, you know what? You know what my family all told me when I was young? They said, son, that concentration camp was hard, but we did it all for Jane Fonda. Don't they know? Don't they? But no, in all seriousness, right? It's yet just another example of how the so-called saviors of the brown people don't know anything about brown people. I don't think they've ever met brown people, but it goes on here because that's what I'm saying. Because how could it be surprising to you, right? I mean, I don't know. I grew up in Los Angeles. We know Persian people. It's been pretty well known forever that, Persians in the United States can't stand the regime. They're in America because of the regime. Like, this is well known. But I guess if you spend your whole life just like not knowing things, never meeting anyone, basically living under a rock, which is really funny because that's what they say about conservatives. Oh, we're uncultured, uneducated, we don't know things. Then I guess in that case, it would be a genuine shock and surprise to you that, Persian people don't like the Ayatollah. They don't like the regime, right? We never knew this beforehand. So, just pretty hilarious and ridiculous. It doesn't stop there, though. I want to show you this video here out of the communist protest over in New York City, where the utter state of these protesters on the left basically speaks for themselves, okay? We have this person saying the United States should align with the Iranian regime instead of with Israel because, and I quote, Iran is not fascist. That is right. These are the people leading these supposed anti-war protests. Take a listen.
Would you rather that we be allies with Iran than Israel?
Yes, sure. I think allying with Israel is one of the most fascist and dangerous actions the U.S. could take.
Okay. And what makes that fascist versus allying with Iran?
Because Iran isn't fascist. Okay. And you studying political ideologies, you understand what fascism is, and it is not Iran. Because Iran was Ayatollah Khomeini's rule was achieved through a revolution. It was sort of a coup d'etat.
Yeah.
Fascism rises electorally and democratically, and then turns on its constituents.
Yes.
Ayatollah Khomeini's regime is not fascist in nature.
So what do you say to the folks that say that it's fascism because they make women wear a hijab?
That's not fascism. Okay. That's theocracy, which is different than fascism.
Okay.
The regime we have in America right now is fascist, or in the United States, I should say, not America.
The United States is fascist.
In the United States, it's fascist.
In what way is it fascist?
Well, I ended this conversation.
Sure. Okay.
You've been very respectful, and I appreciate it.
No, that's what I try to be, yeah. What are your pronouns?
She, her.
She, her. Okay.
These people have the right to vote, is all I'm going to say. However, I would argue maybe the best example of the side-by-side contrast here is the scene in Washington, D.C. yesterday, after a bunch of Persian demonstrators surge in front of the White House in support of Trump, in support of them toppling the Iranian regime, while you have this random white liberal in the crowd shouting at them, Trump is a pedophile. Oh, how dare you support Trump? No, Trump's bad. But we're the party of the brown saviors, but Trump is so bad, right? Check it out. So yeah, there you essentially have the liberal protest scene, and all I can really say in response is,
these people are crazy. I'm telling you, they're crazy.
Yeah. But I think it's quite relevant to point out the actual situation in Iran itself and how Iranian people specifically in Iran actually feel. Because you could try to make the argument that, well, because they're the diaspora, because they're the ones who fled the regime for largely political or religious reasons, they're going to feel a certain way. But how is it going in the country proper? Which is why I think in that case, it's relevant to point out the fact that within hours of the Ayatollah being proclaimed dead yesterday, we saw multiple scenes of massive crowds in Iran, right? In the country where we're doing this, celebrating in multiple places like Tehran and other major cities. So take a look at some of those scenes for yourself. Yeah, so as I said, you can scream CIA propaganda all you want, but the reality is this regime has been in power for 40 years. even the initial honeymoon phase it might have enjoyed for kicking out the Western imperialists or whatever, that has long since faded. The country's in disarray. Its economy is failing. The living conditions of average people are struggling. The repression is harsh. No, it's not CIA propaganda to say that people are going to celebrate finally being liberated from that, right? I mean, Persian people are some of the smartest in the world. Persian civilization has existed for thousands of years, okay? The idea that, none of these people know anything different than Islamic theocracy is just historically not true, okay? So I think the reality is, yes, there are supporters of the regime. There are the jihadis in that country, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of people ready to take over if simply the harsh repression here were to get out of the way and actually build a very successful country. And that's the reality, is that Persia was a successful country before this revolution. It was essentially the Dubai of the Middle East before Dubai even existed. And then what happened, right? It fell to this fanatic, crazy ideology, and what happened next is what happened next. But just something I'd like to point out about that. And of course, I saw the excuse by some today that, the Iranian people are not celebrating. They're mourning the death of the Ayatollah. And it's like, I don't know, does that look like mourning to you? Does it sound like mourning to you? I know I don't speak their language, but it doesn't sound like something you say at a funeral. I'm not sure if that's a cultural difference or something, but it doesn't seem to be the case, right? And perhaps that is most symbolized by this scene right here, where these Iranian patriots pummel and tear down this statue of the Ayatollah Khomeini in Gala Dar, Iran. Check it out for yourself. Yeah, so unlike the communists in Times Square, this doesn't seem exactly insincere or fake, inauthentic, or staged to me, right? I don't think it's really just a CIA propaganda video. As a matter of fact, what it really just is a bunch of people who you can hear in their voice and their ecstasy, right? Have been ready for this. They've been waiting for this. They've been likely praying for this. However, because of the repression against them, they weren't able to go out and express this way. And that's sort of what the initial, I guess you could call, cry of freedom feels like, right? Now, obviously the job's not finished, and, we have a way to go with the whole foreign operation and what's going to happen next with this regime. But clearly, because the country as we speak is in disarray, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and police forces just have very little ability to actually restore order or, deal with the protesters. They have much bigger problems. And so for even a moment where people feel like they're free from retribution by the government, that's how they respond, right? That's the scene you see, by the way, from largely fighting age men out in the streets. But surely they're all just falling for the CIA, guys, don't you know? Hey, did these people remember to consult with Jane Fonda first, right? But anyways, that's the side-by-side, right? That's the contrast, as usual, we have. Liberals would probably be smartest if they stuck to just saying, look, we don't want to have more wars or something. But, of course, they always have to get into these ridiculous stunts where we find out it's not just that leftists are anti-war. As a matter of fact, leftists are extremely pro-war when it's a war they ideologically agree with. That's a pretty common pattern, but, whenever it's a war against either some type of hero of leftism, whether that's Nicolas Maduro or the supposedly, anti-Zionist fighting Israel-Iranian regime, then, they're just going to go and make a bunch of excuses and, defend really stupid things. So that's the story we're seeing this time, as we always see. That said, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.